All right, folks. Peace and blessings. So let's start all over. Okay, so thank you for joining me. This is brother Gabar. You could have been anywhere else, but you're here with me. This is IAMFITPodcast. Man going God's way. Are you fit to go God's way? So, you heard the title of the show. We need to talk about Deuteronomy 28, 22 and 28. It's been a controversial conversation. Even when I was with GOCC, I had some questions about this and even some debate. And this is a controversial conversation. So the conversation is basically, did Deuteronomy 22, 28, is it talking about God allowing a man to force himself? I can't use the R word because I get flagged and it's one of those things. Force himself on a woman forcefully, and then if he pays dowry to the father of the woman who he forcefully had relations with, and there's a word for that which starts with an R. I'm not going to say it. I don't want to get shadow banned or the platform, right? If he pays his dowry, he's able to, marry the woman he forced himself onto. Okay, there is no sound at all. Okay, now, I'm hearing there's no sound at all. Let me see something. 2 seconds. Let me make sure. To marry the woman he. Okay, I hear sounds. Just check your computer. Anybody else? Is it the same thing? No sound at all? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Let me check real quick. Okay, I hear sounds. Just okay. There. Okay. Okay. I have sound. I hear. Con. Okay, so we're good. I think. Okay. Very good. All right. Very good. Out edited in the back end. So let's get to the meat and potatoes of the conversation we're going to have today, right? So in Deuteronomy 22, 28, okay, thank you. Okay, we all good. Okay, so it goes into what will happen if a man commits adultery against another man, if he sleeps with his wife. Both of them, the man, the adulterer, and the adulteress, will get killed. It will also find if a woman who is betrothed and she gets forced to have sex with a man, the R word, the man will get killed. She will not get killed. But when it continues reading, it goes into the same scenario. If a man finds a woman, the only difference is this time the woman is not engaged or betrothed. And it says that all he has to do is give a dowry to the father. And when I read this, and I'm going to kind of give you guys my conclusion because there's 2 theories in the equation, right? And I'm going to present both theories objectively. I'm not going to give my belief until much later, but I want to first start the premise. So you guys probably remember, or probably know by now, that Mr. Polite, he was arrested and convicted, and now he is in jail or about to go to jail. He got sentenced for 7 years for molesting a 14-year-old girl. My understanding, it was the daughter of one of his wives. And he's serving 7 years, and it's been out in the on the internet for a little bit now. Now there was a conversation that Brother Polite had with Brother Zion Lex years ago. And they took a little, if I could find it, they took a little meme on, let me see if I could find it, on Polite when he was talking about a scenario similar it was an ironic thing that he got caught with this woman. Now he's getting with this young lady. Now he's getting sentenced to go to jail for 7 years, right? So within this meme that came out, I'm trying to find it. Forgive me. I thought I had it earlier. To now, this thing with the internet is like where. Okay, here we go. So let me get this meme going. Okay.
No, you. If I grab.
Okay, let me get this meme going real quick. So this is the meme that I'm referring to, right? So it's fair use.
The woman, right? Aggressively.
Well, let me start from the beginning.
No, you. If I grabbed the woman, right? Aggressively, and I had got discovered having sex with her, right? I would have to pay a debt to society in the form of incarceration, right? If I grabbed a woman, right, aggressively, and I had got discovered having sex with her, right?
Now you notice in the capture it says Deuteronomy chapter 22, right? Rebuttal, right? So that kind of sparked my idea, or juices flowing when it comes to maybe having this conversation, although it's a controversial one. And I want to be as sensitive and as considerate to others people's feelings, because I know this is a sensitive conversation. The R word is never an easy conversation. So I want to be fair. So within this scenario, it sparked a conversation in my mind. And I want to start the conversation with Brother Zion Lex. This is actually the debate. The debate was about 20 or 40 minutes long. It says 29 minutes long. So I'm gonna pick it up at the 2 minutes and 56 seconds, where Zion Lex is establishing the whole idea whether the Bible condemns the R word, and we're going to this, and he believes it does not, and he's bringing his premise, right? And Polite is saying that it does, right? And this is the debate that we're going to pick it up at 2 minutes and 56 seconds. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, here we go.
For instance, people say things like the Bible allows or fosters the idea that a woman can be raped. You've heard this before, Deuteronomy chapter 22. The Bible fosters, right, the Bible fosters, some people say that a Bible, so I'm going to use what he's saying. I was starting to say some people, but he seemed to be familiar with it. Right, but because he's familiar with it, I'm going to say, we're going to work with what Brother Sarnetta is saying. So according to Brother Sarnetta, the King James Bible seems to be describing in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 22 that it's okay to rape a woman, and if you are able to dominate her physically, watch my arm as I'm talking, I'm also flexing my arm, if you're able to dominate her physically, then she's yours, regardless of whether or not she wants to be yours. That's so stupid and incorrect. But watch this, there's a wisdom and a science to the way it's articulated in the scriptures, and I'm going to make it make sense. Watch this. So the Bible says, if a man finds a virgin woman in the field, takes hold of her and grasp her and lay with her, and they are discovered, he shall go to the father of the woman, pay 50 shekels to the father, and he cannot divorce her for the rest of the days of his life. She shall remain his wife eternally. So people say, wait, the Bible just said, if he grab her, take hold of her, and have sex with her, she his wife. All he got to do is pay $50. So the Bible's saying, if I could overpower a woman, she mine. That's not what it's saying. Follow the language and understand the concept. African spirituality always is given in abstraction. There's always an enigma. Why? People who speak enigmatically tend to be people who are deep thinkers, people who actually have something to say. People who are surface level, when they speak, usually have nothing to say. Watch how it makes sense. The Bible says, if a man finds a woman, grasp her and takes hold of her, and they are discovered, he can't divorce her. The key words are, they are discovered. If it's actually rape, hold on, listen carefully. Hold on, no problem, listen. If he actually grabbed her, if he actually raped her, I'm gonna wait till y'all done, because what I gotta say is very eloquent, minus the interruption. So go ahead. So watch this. The very vernacular that's being employed is being employed and being positioned for a reason. The Bible considers that a woman who is born or raised in the home of her parents, if you're having sex with her and you're not married to her, it's as if you raped her. She's not being raped, the woman in the story, and that's what most people miss. Because the Bible says, and if they are discovered. If she was raped, there's only one person hiding, that's the man. But the Bible says, and if they are discovered, that means they both are keeping something a secret, which means the Bible is saying the woman was implicit in the action. But the Bible is using the language of rape, because what the Bible is saying, if you're laying with a woman while she's in the household of her parents, and you haven't presented to her parents that you have interest in her, then it is if you have raped a woman. That's why the language is if a man grasp her and hold her. The Bible's is not promoting the idea that a man could rape a woman. If that's the case, you got to wipe it with your ass, because that's what it could only be useful for. But what you hold on, let me finish.
So what Zion Lex brilliantly explained to the Kemetic community, which are, they're against the Bible. We know this. That he's bringing the argument, right? That, and this is the breakdown I used to believe as well, that it's not talking about the R word in Deuteronomy 22:28. Although it's talking about the R word in Deuteronomy 22:27 and 26. But I have to be fair and objective to my people and to myself and to my audience, that there are another side to the equation. And the King James Bible and the Hebrew, which the King James took its translation from, which was from the Masoretic text, it's not clear enough, and that's the reason why there's an argument. It doesn't say, him taking her does not mean all the time the R word, but it could mean the R word, depending on the context. So there's an argument on both sides, right? And I want to, now this is polite rebuttal, right? I want to be fair. And then I'm going to go through the scriptures as well. I'm going to go to all the arguments, and I'm going to give you guys my opinion on it. Fair use.
In America, if I grabbed a woman, right, aggressively, and I got discovered having sex with her, right, I would have to pay a debt to society in the form of incarceration, right? Is that a metaphor for 50 shekels in the past?
So I speed it up a little bit, and also this is the rebuttal, because polite is saying that it is the R word in the Bible.
I'm just saying, is there another way to look at it, or are there some other verses there that are stipulating the things that Brother Zion is saying, or can we just say there's probably two ways to look at it? That's all I want to know, because if I get discovered grabbing some fucking woman and having sex with her, if I aggressively grab her, because we can say the woman is implicit in the act, right? But I don't know where it says that at.
All right, so let me say this. One thing that was crucial to to his rebuttal that I actually touched on is a phrase that I use: cultural context. Brother Polite said, well, in America, if I grab a woman, I can catch a charge. If I grab a woman, that can be construed as rape. So I don't know. How is this to be interpreted? Remember, when I speak, I got a very, very long catalog, by the way. You could just type in the name Zion, L-E, and everything else comes up. So whenever I speak, it's always very, very meticulous. It's always straight to the point, and it's always very orchestrated in a way that you know exactly what I'm giving you is exactly what it is. What I said very keenly is cultural context. So American culture is different than biblical culture, or different than the culture of the people of the Bible, quote unquote, because American culture allows for the things that the Bible clearly condemns. So those are two different cultural civilizations, and obviously two different cultural contexts. So watch this. In the Torah, there's a story that's presented that's going to validate everything I'm saying right now. And even Brother Polite knows the story, so watch how it comes full circle. There's a woman by the name of Dinah. She's the sister of...
Now, that's where I believe is the answer, but not in the book of Genesis. In the book of Jubilee is the answer. But we're going to go over the scriptures and going over the understanding, because the problem is we're looking to answer a question with the confinement of the 5 books of Moses, and that's a mistake. The 5 books of Moses, which was coined, Moses never coined that term. It was coined to the records, I will believe, I will say that if there is a 5 books of Moses, it should be the book of Genesis should be removed and the book of Jubilee should be added. And the reason why is because the answer is in the book of Jubilee. The book of Genesis is a history book that brings in or bring a summary when certain laws were established, like on the 7th day, God established the Sabbath, and he goes into that. Nowhere in the book of Exodus through Deuteronomy, it mentions that a man is the head of the woman. The only place you find that, any reference to that, is in Genesis chapter 3 and 16, I believe, when God said that the woman will be subject to the man and let him rule over her and and let her desire be towards her husband, right? And Paul quoted that law in 1 Corinthians chapter 14, I believe somewhere in the 48, 47, when it says, let your women learn in silence in the churches, for it's not commanded for them to, it's not permitted for them to speak in churches, for they are commanded, also says the law. And when you look at the reference, what's the law he was referencing? He was referencing Genesis 3 and 16. However, there's other laws mentioned in the book of the 5 books of Moses, specifically Deuteronomy, Exodus, and through Deuteronomy, where you got the motive of the law. It goes into, in the book of Jubilee, it goes into the new moon feast. The new moon is mentioned in the Bible that we should celebrate, but for some odd reason, it is absent in Leviticus 23. Leviticus 23 is famous for, why? Because in there it lists all the feast days of the Most High. But the new moon feast is absent in that particular chapter. We know we celebrate it. It's mentioned several times, right? When would the Sabbath and the new moon be over, right? Let no man judge you in respect of meats and food and drinks and the Sabbath day and the new moon, right? And the feast days. It mentions it as a celebration, but it's nowhere, there's no instruction how to keep it and where to keep it and when to keep it. You can find in the book of Jubilee, though, right? So I'm saying that to say this. Maybe we are looking at this from the perspective that the law, same way as Moses did not introduce the Sabbath was already there because it was through the time of Genesis, through the time of creation, but God reminded Moses to remind the children of Israel not to forget the Sabbath, right? So I think what's missing is the book of Jubilee, and that's what's missing, and that's what we need to focus on, and that's what I want to focus on today, right? So I want to now. And I want to play some videos, and it is connected to Dinah or Dina, but I believe the answer is in the book of Jubilee. It's not in the book of Genesis, right? Now, I want to kind of show you guys because this is something that is also is a struggle or is a conversation even with, typical Christians here in America. These questions are asked, fair use.
One of the pushbacks I get from unbelieving family is about some of the atrocities in the Old Testament.
Yes.
Specifically, a woman having to marry her rapist or vice versa. I mean, I sort of have an answer for it, but it's sort of difficult to press in today's culture. And then, some of the other wars and what are perceived by some as genocides and things like that. So how would you answer?
All right, let's deal with the rape issue first, because that's a big one. The best book on this topic is by Paul Copan, who is a brilliant scholar, teaches at Palm Beach University. He's written a number of books. This is the book, Is God a Moral Monster? Here is what he talks about with regard to this issue. First of all, before we even address it, is the person that that's bringing up this objection, is this person an atheist?
She's more anti-God than an atheist.
So that's even worse.
Sure.
Right.
Yes.
One thing you can ask her, you could just ask her, why do you think rape is wrong? I mean, if there's no God,
Right.
if evolution is true, and there is no God, and by the way, even if evolution is true, doesn't mean there's no God.
Right.
I could go into that now, I don't have time, but say there is no God, and we're just overgrown germs, then there's nothing wrong with raping to propagate our genes, right?
Sure.
So, in other words, she's stealing a standard from God to say God doesn't exist. But let's deal with the question on rape directly. Here's what Copan says. There are 3 different scenarios in this section of Scripture. This is Deuteronomy 22, 23 to 29. There's adultery, there's rape, and there's seduction with no resistance. Okay? And here's how this plays out. If they were actually involved in adultery, they're both married, then capital punishment was the punishment in the Old Testament for adultery. If it's rape, it's capital punishment for the man. Obviously, the woman is not guilty. If it's seduction, if the woman was not pledged to be married, the man was to pay a fine, was obligated to marry her unless her father refused. He could never divorce her. This ensured her security because in the ancient Near East culture, she would be ostracized and unable to find a husband and protection. In other words, if she just agreed to have intercourse with this guy, this is not a rape situation. This was what was told by God to do.
So it's a misunderstanding
It
that
is.
someone has ever, or that it was ever in the Bible that the
Exactly.
rapist would
You've
be-
got to
should be
know the
forced by
Hebrew
rape
to understand
statute.
what the differences are. The last
Sure.
point is this. The Old Testament law is not applicable today only for the theocracy of ancient Israel. So I would suggest that in today's culture, while our punishment isn't as extreme, we agree that adultery is wrong, that rape is wrong, and if people consent to have sex, somebody ought to take care of a woman if she's in trouble.
Right. So you guys could see the point here, right? So I'm going to play another video because this is a question. And it's a heated
Here's the thing, Dan.
a heated thing because this is a Christian lady debating another Christian scholar. This guy is forgot what's his guy's name here is Dan McLaren. He's PhD guy, yada yada yada. He does video, but a young Christian woman, and this is the reason why I don't believe women should get into the subject because it's too sensitive of a topic, and they're gonna lead with their emotions, not with their intellect. And I want to give you what I believe it to be true because we don't know. It's a little in the Masoretic text. It's vague. It could be consensual or it could be forced, and people are arguing back and forth. And let me show you how heated this argument is getting. Fair use.
Here's the thing, Dan. You're wrong on this topic, just like you have been wrong in many of your previous videos.
All right, let's see it.
The only thing that you accomplished in that video was you brought up different translations that agreed with your interpretation of that verse.
No, that's not true. I also pointed out that this is the overwhelming academic consensus, and I pointed out even the resources that you were using to try to argue against the consensus reading agreed with the consensus reading. And I didn't provide any further argument because I already pointed out all of the reasons that this definitely refers to sexual assault in the first video. You did not respond to that reasoning, so I don't feel the need to repeat myself.
The Septuagint is a great tool, especially for studying the New Testament. However, there are many differences between the
and we're going to address the Septuagint in a minute because she brings it out because the Septuagint says it's a little different. So that's the reason she brought it out because she's responding to a video that he discussed on the subject. His standing is it was talking about the R word, right? She's saying it's not, and they're going back and forth, right?
Septuagint and the Hebrew Bible in every book of the Old Testament, and some of these differences are significant.
See, I'm well aware of this. In fact, that was the precise topic of the master's thesis that I wrote at the University of Oxford and for which I won an award for best dissertation from the University of Oxford. But if you want to make the case that the Septuagint's rendering of a given passage diverges from its Hebrew source text, either because of translator exegesis or because of a variant source text, you actually have to make the case. The mere fact that there can be differences is not evidence that there is a difference in a given passage. You actually have to make that case, and you have done absolutely no such thing whatsoever.
So bringing up these different translations that agree with your interpretation does not validate your argument in any way, especially if you cannot connect that to the original context of the scripture.
See, I explained the context very clearly.
That's why you have to be very careful when you are having conversation with these women. They talk very fast because they masquerade their biasness through their perceived wisdom. They throw in a lot of quick words and quote a lot of people. You gotta slow this thing down. And this is my theory. I can't prove it. This is my theory. I believe TikTok and these type of Instagram, these type of quick video information receiving videos. Did you know that blah 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 in a year blah 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 and this happened, right? And you're like looking. You don't have time to take your time. Hold on. Just have a conversation. Like, for instance, Joe Rogan, for instance, he would interview somebody for like 3 hours, 4 hours in time, and allowed him to elaborate in details and back and forth, and people get a understanding. These back and forth that's going on in TikTok, trust me, guys, this is not information. If you watch TikTok and you hear somebody say, this person said this person said that, and this year and that happened, look, this was found, and this proves that this is true. Take the note, check their sources to see what they're saying is true before you accept it as being true. There's a lot of biasness out there. There's a lot of people that are bringing information through their biased lens, right? Confirmation bias. Fair use.
The original video, and you never responded to the details of that explanation.
You admit that Telfaz has different interpretations, and then you proceed to declare that your interpretation is the most correct just because you have these other translations that agree with you.
No, what I did was explain that when you actually learn Hebrew, which you very clearly have not done, you learn the ways the contextual and morphological and other cues point in the direction of the best reading. And then I showed that this
right, and this is the reason why I always emphasize in study and reading and even going through their traditional educational channels if need be, because a lot of our people focus on pseudoscience when it comes to history. Not all, but a lot when it comes to this understanding. So you have to make sure, first of all, what is the consensus? It doesn't mean the consensus is correct, but you should find out what is the consensus and then work from there. Sometimes I agree with the consensus, sometimes I don't. But I am fair to tell myself and the audience, whoever I'm speaking with, that there is two sides to the story. I don't just give them my side with the why I agree. I think that's biased. I think we should not do that. It's not healthy when you do it this way, and especially when you're dealing with these heated type of conversations, right? Fair use.
Is the best reading, and that the overwhelming majority of the scholarship agrees.
I've already provided in several videos an analysis of the context.
Now, he was saying that the majority of scholars do agree that this is talking about the R word in that particular situation. I'm going to show you guys why that is, right? Some don't, right? There's theologians, modern theologians that don't today. And there's been an argument going back in the term of the 21st century, right? So there were arguments on both sides, right? But what does the data says, right? And I'm going to give you my opinion in a few minutes. Fair use.
Deuteronomy 22 verse 28, as well as provided you with other verses where Telfaz is used, but it has a different application.
No, what you did was selectively and naively highlight a few pieces of the context and then just arbitrarily assert that makes your reading correct. You also entirely ignored my more detailed explanation of the context.
Telfaz is never used in the Bible to describe rape.
That is entirely inaccurate, and that is a circular argument, the overwhelming academic consensus.
And I agree with him. I checked because there is no such things as the word rape. I just want to say it, or the R word in the Bible. And the problem with saying that one Hebrew word means only one thing is showing your ignorance, because all scholars agree that it all depends in what context you're using that word, right? Elohim could be the supreme God, or Elohim or Elohim could be the lords of the land, the leaders of the God, or the kings of the land. It could be the judges. It all depends how it's being used. With the two words that was used here, it could be used as siege, it could be used as force, or it could be just grab up, like, you grab something, and so forth, so on. Or it could be, grabbing or sieging the heart of a woman, through romance. That it could be used that way too. So it doesn't mean it only means one thing, right? Fair use
is that it very clearly describes it in this passage.
The word that is used is kauzak, which I also mentioned in previous videos.
You continue to mispronounce these roots based on your misunderstanding of a 19th century transliteration convention. The word is chazak.
You look at the scripture from 2 Samuel, you see that Amnon forced Tamar and lay with her. The word used for forced is kauzak.
No, it's not. The verb chazak occurs in verse 11 of this chapter, and in your translation, it is the verb that is rendered he took hold of. The verb that is rendered force in verse 12 here is the verbal root ana, and specifically the PL stem of that verbal root, which can mean to oppress or to rape a woman, as it does here multiple times, as it does in Genesis 34, as it does in Judges 19. Oh yeah, the PL of ana is also used in Deuteronomy 22:29 to describe what the man does to this unfortunate young woman.
There are many competent authorities in biblical interpretation who disagree with you, such as Charles Foster Kent, a Yale professor, and J.A. Thompson, an Old Testament scholar and
Now pay attention, because I looked all these guys up, right? These people, it's going to explain in the video. Be careful when people quote these people as like contemporary.
biblical archaeologist, and Meredith Klein, another Old Testament scholar.
So these are all dead scholars. One of them died 98 years ago, but I decided to look up their positions on this. So the only relevant thing I could find from Charles Foster Kent, the scholar who died 98 years ago, was a 1907 book called Israel's Laws and Traditional Precedents, which is really just kind of categorizing the different passages. So here we have...
And this is my theory. I think a lot of pastors or theologians avoid this question. I think it was a controversial question. I think people didn't want to deal with it, so they kind of like just, didn't really address it or in a forceful manner, because it's a controversial conversation, and people sometimes don't want to open some Pandora box because they can't close it, right? So, but he's going to touch on this.
Under the category of laws of divorce, Deuteronomy 22:28, which Kent renders, if a man findeth a young woman who is a virgin but is not betrothed, and lay hands on her, and lie with her, and they be found, etc., etc. So this rendering would seem to suggest that Kent agrees with my interpretation of the verb tafas. But if you can point me in the direction of some scholarship that explicitly disagrees with me, I'd appreciate that. Klein actually has a commentary on Deuteronomy, and I looked that up. And it actually doesn't say one way or another if this was forced or consensual. It just refers to the seduction of unmarried girls. And that word seduction is used to refer both to rape as well as to consensual intercourse. So,
and what I'm going to do, folks, I'm going to put the video on the comment section. I'm not able, for some odd reason, what I'm doing. Okay, here. Okay. Let me do here. Okay. Okay, it's in the comment section, folks. You guys should see it. My pop-up on chat is not working, so I apologize for that. But I put it in the comment section. You guys could, see the rest of the video. It's like about 7 minutes and 45 seconds long. Let me see another video. Okay, we already played that. Okay. Let's see here. I think we covered most of the videos. Okay, so let's get to my PowerPoint, right? And I wanna bring, I wanna set my thesis to you folks. So just bear with me, right? So this is the conversation that we're gonna be having, right, today. So let's talk about Deuteronomy 22:28, right? So the first thing I want to establish first is the actual chapter. I'm going to read it in its totality, and people that know me understand that I usually like to read a little bit before, the introduction, body, and conclusion of a chapter, so you can get the proper context, right? So we're gonna pick it up at verse 22 in chapter 22 of the book of Deuteronomy, right? And it reads as follow. If a man be found laying with a woman married to a husband, and they shall both of them die, both the man that lay with the woman and the woman who shall end the woman. So shalt thou put away evil from Israel. If a damsel, I'm reading 23, if a damsel that is a virgin be betrothed unto a husband, and a man finds her in the city, and lay with her, and then ye shall bring them both out unto the gates of this the gates of that city, and ye shall stone them with stones that they should die. Excuse me. The damsel, because she cried not, being in the city, and the man, because he had humbled his neighbor's wife, so that thou shalt put away evil from among you. Right. So let me bring over the next scripture, because this is now verse 25, right? Which reads, but if a man finds a betrothed damsel in the field, and the man force her, this is clearly rape, the R word, and lay with her, and then the man only that lay with her shall die. But unto the damsel thou shalt do nothing. There is in the damsel no sin worthy of death. For as when a man rises against his neighbor and slay him, even so is this matter. For he found her in the field, and the betrothed damsel cried, and there was there was none to save her. Right, verse 28. Now this is the problem. So therefore, now if she's betrothed, and then she gets forced to have a relation with a man against her will, only the man will be killed, not her, right? But now it talks about a damsel that is not betrothed. Now, betrothed means engaged. She's promised to a man, right? Verse 28, this is the controversial part. It says, if a man finds a damsel that is a virgin, which is not betrothed, and laid hold on her, and lay with her, and they be found, then the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he has humbled her. He may not put her away all his days. Right? So what this is applying, is it talking about that the man who forced a woman to have a relationship with him, now the woman is forced to marry the man that raped her? Is that what the Bible's saying? And I dig in deep, and I looked, and I saw other version. This is the Christian Standard Bible version. Now, let me go back. What Zion was saying is that if they be found, when it says if they be found, that apply as if the woman was complicit. And then that will make sense if the woman was complicit, why it says if they be found. Other scholars disagree with that. It just means if they were discovered, right? So we're gonna read other versions, right? And like I said, I'm not gonna give you my opinion, but I'm just going to establish what is out there, what is the rebuttal of the consensus, and the consensus is yes, it was the R word. It was a thing that was forced. And let me read you the Christian Standard Bible, right? Can't get any standard than that. It says, if a man encounters a young woman, a virgin who is not engaged, takes hold of her and rapes her, In this version, it actually says the word rapes. And they are discovered. The man who rapes her is to give the young woman's father 50 silver shekels, and she shall become his wife because he had violated her. He he cannot divorce her as long as he lives, right? Another version, contemporary English version, right? I'm going to pick it up at the verse 28. Suppose a woman isn't engaged to be married, and a man forces her to have sex with him. If he is caught, they will be forced to get married. He must give her father 50 pieces of silver as a bridge, a bride price, and can never divorce her, right? Let me give you another one. And I'm going to take some phone calls later, so just hold your, for those that have opinions on the subject, you can call in and after I finish my PowerPoint. Easy to read version, right? The ERV version Bible says, a man might find a virgin girl who is not engaged and force her to have sexual relations with him. If other people see this happen, he must pay the girl's father 20 ounce of silver, and the girl will become the man's wife because he used her for sexual sin. He cannot divorce her all his life, right? Now, you notice the young lady mentioned the Septuagint. The Septuagint is older than the Masoretic text. The Masoretic text was put together about 1,000 years ago. The Septuagint goes back to Ptolemy when the Jews were in Egypt. Remember that? And so this is going back about 300 years before Christ. There were many copies saved and was translated, and this is one of the translation. In that version, which is highly quoted by the New Testament writers, meaning about 80%, this is my studies, it's been a while, 80% of the time is mentioned, or 79% of the time, I believe, is mentioned, the New Testament writers are quoting the Septuagint, not the Masoretic text. I think only 20% of the time is mentioned the Masoretic text. But it's almost, they say very similar things, it's just little differences here and there. And this is one of the differences. And these little differences mean a lot, right? I'm in 22 of Deuteronomy, she's 28 in the Septuagint, the Greek Bible. If anyone should find a young virgin who has not been betrothed and should force and lie with her, and be found, the man who lied with her shall give to the father of the damsel 50 shekels, that means shekels. And she shall be his wife because he has humbled her. Keep in mind that word humble. It's going to come back later on to prove my point. He will never be able to put her away, right? So even the Septuagint confirms the consensus that this was a rape, right? The Targum. Now the Targum, right? I like it, but it's you got to be careful because they add a lot of their own opinions on it. So, and usually it's rabbinical doctrine opinions, right? So you have to be careful with that. But even the Targum, right? And there's two Targums. You got the Jonathan and you got the Onkelos, right? But we really need the Jonathan, and it says pretty much the same thing. I'm going to read, and I'm going to pick it up in the bottom of the paragraph, right? And forgive me because it's a small writing, so I could barely see it. And it reads as follows. If a man finds a damsel who is not betrothed and sees and lie with her, and they be found, then the man who lied with her shall give to her father as a fine for her dishonor 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he humbled her, nor shall he be, I think there's a typo, power to put her away by divorcement all his days, right? So this touching the book of Jubilee. Let's go into the book of Jubilee, because I think the answer is in the book of Jubilee. And I said that I think the answer is. And I want to, after I finish my PowerPoint, I want people, call in. I'm also going to put the Zoom link as well after I'm done, if you guys want to come on through the Zoom. Now, people understand that the book of Jubilee, right, is at least a respected book. It should be. And we as Americans have to understand that there are different sources of biblical writings, different arguments, different people arguing, different churches believing different things. We in America specifically follow the trend of the Roman, Eastern Orthodox, and the Protestant lineage of thinking, not others. So let me just read this real quick. It says, the Book of Jubilees, sometimes called the Lesser Genesis, is an ancient Jewish religious work of 50 chapters, 1,341 verses, considered canonical by the Ethiopic Orthodox Church, as well as the Beta Israel, Ethiopian Jews, where it is known as the Book of the Vision, right? I'm going to go down. Let me keep reading. So the Book of the Vision. Jubilee is considered one of the pseudographica by the Roman Catholic Church. I mean, they don't say it's the word pseudographica, the root word pseudo meaning false, and they don't canonize it, right? The Roman Church, the Eastern Orthodox, and the Protestant churches, right? It is also not considered canonical within Judaism, right? Outside of Beta Israel. Right? Now, the ancient Beta Israel in Ethiopia, Africa, is the oldest recorded Israelite community to date that we have. If you want to go into the other Jewish community, like the Ashkenazis, their history goes back about, they could confirm it, about 1,000 years. And I believe they're converts anyway, but that's a different conversation, right? You got a Sephardic, they go back to the 14th, 13th century in Spain, right? But the Beta Israel, they go back thousands of years. They even mention the Bible. The Ethiopian eunuch coming to worship. So that showed that there was an Israelite community or Jewish or a community following Torah. I want to put aside who's a convert and who's not, because the people that were blood Israelites, that were following Judaism, and the converts that converted to Judaism follow the same religion. So just because a community it may have some converts, it does not necessarily mean they are off. So we have to respect the Beta Israel, because they are older than the Ashkenazi Jews. They are older than the Sephardic Jews in regards of tracing that community going back into pre and post Christ, right? More evidence that the book of Jubilee should be respected. This is from Wikipedia, by the way, right? It says, it was well known to early Christian as evidenced by the writings of, and it goes into the different, Justin Martyr, Orion, and others. All these men that go back to early, we're talking about 100 to 150 years to 200 years within the time of Christ, that were quoting the book of Jubilee. It was in circulation at that time. A Greek copy didn't survive, my personal opinion. You got to go to the Roman Catholic Church Library, which they have thousands, maybe billions of books that they have not released. They probably have a copy they're not releasing. That's my opinion. Let me read the bottom text. It says, the yellow text says, the text was also utilized by the community that originally collected the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? The Gage version, I'm reading the bottom paragraph in yellow, the Gears version has been shown to be a accurate translation of the version found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. So the Ethiopic Ethiopic Book of Jubilee and the Book of Jubilee found in the Dead Sea Scrolls match. We got to respect it. So Brother Zionex, he mentioned Dina, right? Dina, right? You and Peninsula. I like Dina, but it could be Dina. But the law that what law are we looking for? Is it illegal to the R word a woman in Israel? Because, okay, let's just say hypothetically, Zion Lex is right, and all the other brothers and scholars that disagree that this was not a forced sexual encounter. There was consensual. Let's just say in Deuteronomy 28, it's talking about consensual sex. Let's just say hypothetically. Okay, scholars, where in the law it says an area, a place that we could find that is illegal, that you cannot forcefully rape a woman? We can't find it. The closest thing that we have is when the Shechem, the Hivite, the Canaanite, had a relationship with Dinah, right? Zion Lex, from his understanding, believes that Dinah was complicit. I disagree with that. I believe other evidence showed that she was raped. And we're going to show that, right? Let me just read the scripture real quick. It says, and Dinah, the daughter of Leah, which she bears unto Jacob, went up to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her. And that's how he took her. Did he romance her? He just took her. I believe he took her. And lay with her and devour her. Okay, so we're going to go into other writings to confirm, right? We're going to also go into the book of Jasher. Now, the book of Jasher is, I don't put it in the same category as the book of Jubilee. The book of Jasher, I view it as in the same word or the same category as the book of Josephus, the complete works of Josephus. I look at it as the complete works of Philo of Alexandria, another Jew that lived in Alexandria, Egypt, contemporary. He has some works that survive. I look at the book of Jasher as a collective of men that came together and put these records together. It did not come from an angel. It wasn't revealed. It was not a divine revelation. So there could be errors there. So I wanna be fair. That's my personal opinion. So in this version, it shows that Dinah was not complicit. She was taken. She was raped. Right? So exhibit number 1, right? Let me start from the beginning. And it reads, and Shechem, the son of Hamor, the prince of the land, was also standing there and to see them. And Shechem beheld Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, sitting with the women, with her mother, before the daughters of the city. And the damsel pleased him greatly. And he there asked his friends and his people, saying, whose daughter is that sitting among the women, whom I do not know in the city? And they say unto them, surely this is the daughter of Jacob, the son of Isaac the Hebrew, who has dwelt in this city for some time. And when it was reported that the daughter of the land were going forth to rejoice, she went with her mother and made it in a maidservant, and to set among them, and thou seest, right? Now, number 10, that's the one I want to go to. It says, and Shechem beheld Dinah, the daughter of Jacob. And when he looked at her, his soul became fixed upon Dinah, and he sent and had her taken by force. That's why I believe it was a rape. And Dinah came to the house of Shechem, and he seized her forcefully. That was rape. And lay with her and humble her. Remember that? He has humbled her. It's the same. And remember, this particular history compilation or groups of books called the Book of Jasher. The word Jasher is not a man, which is the word means upright ones, right? It says it's faithfully translated from the original Hebrew into English. So this record was preserved in Hebrew. So that's why there's some validity there. In this record, it says she was raped, right? So I want to continue, and let's see here. I want to pick it up at verse 21. Matter of fact, I want to pick it up in verse 20. And it says, and the man was very, this is Simeon and Levi. And the men were very rough, were much grieved concerning their sister. And they all came home fire with anger, because the time of gathering in their cattle. And they came and sat before their father, and they spoke unto him kindled with wrath, saying, surely death is due to this man and to his household, because the Lord God, pay attention, and this is going to be repeated in the book of Jubilee, but it's going to expound upon this law. Because the Lord God of the whole earth commanded Noah and his children that man should never rob, because he robbed her virginity, right? That's what he took from her, right? Nor commit adultery. Now, behold, Shechem has both ravish, more evidence. The word ravish means rape, or could mean rape, ravish. He took her. This was not a date. This was not, it doesn't matter. Let's say he got her drunk. That's date rape. Doesn't matter. He took her. He raped her. And I do agree with Zion that it doesn't matter in what context you take a woman, whether you seduce her or you convince her. If you do not go to the father, according to the Hebrew culture at that time, it would be considered a fornication, right? He stole something that belonged to him because he didn't pursue it the proper way, right? It says, commanded Noah and his children that man should never rob nor commit adultery. Now, behold, Shechem has both ravaged and committed fornication, and committed fornication with our sister. And no one of all the people of the city spoke a word to him. So they were like, this went down, nobody said nothing to this guy? So they were pissed, right? Surely thou knowest and understandest that the judgment of death is due to Shechem and to his father and to the whole city on account of the things which has been done. An account of the things which has been done, right? Which he has done, excuse me. I'm going to pick it up at, let me get straight to the point. 'Cause let me pick it up at 34. It says, and when they had gone, the sons of Jacob said unto their father, saying, behold, we know that death is due to this wicked ones, these wicked ones, and their cities, because they transgress that which God had commanded unto Noah. So this is going back to commandments. What was the violation? Rape. What is the commandment about what to do with rapists? We kill them. But the book of Jubilee goes into much deeper. And Noah and his children and his seed after him. And also because Shechem did this thing to our sister Dinah in devouring her, and such violence, more evidence it was rape, shall never be done among us. And what people need to understand when you're reading the books of Moses and the writings, right? It's not what you're allowed to do. It's more focusing is when you do something you're not allowed to do, it goes against our culture, there's a penalty. So it's not that you could just grab and have sex and seduce a woman, because that's not part of our culture. But if you do, there's a penalty, and there's a different penalty depending on different circumstances, right? Never be done among us. Now, therefore, know and see what you will do, and seek counsel and complex what is to be done to them in order to kill all the inhabitants of the city, right? So it goes back and forth. And read the book of Jasher, because it goes into much deeper in detail what went down, right? So now I want to pick it up in the book of Jubilee, because I believe the answer that is missing is in the book of Jubilee. Now, the book of Jubilee is claiming to be divine, right? Verse 2, and Moses went up into the mountain of God, and the glory of the Lord abode in Mount Sinai, and the cloud overshadowed it 6 days. And he called to Moses on the seventh day out of the midst of the cloud, and an appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a flaming fire on the top of the mountain. And Moses was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights, and God taught him the earlier Genesis and also Jubilee, Exodus, right? All the other books, right? The history, right? The earlier and the later history of the division of all the days of the law. There's a law that is not specifically addressed in the book of Genesis, specifically dealing with Dinah, but it is specifically addressed in the book of Jubilee, right? Now we're going to pick it up in chapter 30, where it mentions this, right? Now the book of Jubilee is broken down to sections to Jubilee, what happened at what time, right? So stay with me. I'm going to jump. There's a lot of read to this, so I'm going to try to jump to the key areas, right? But I want to start on top. And in the 5th year of the 6th week, he went up to Shalom and to the east of Shechem in peace in the 4th month. And there they carry off Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, into the house of Shechem, and the son of Hamor, the Hivite, the prince of the land. And he laid with her and devoured her, and she was a little girl, a child of 12 years old. Why did the writers of the book of Jubilee emphasize her age? Emphasize that he violated her and also, defiled her, because she was a young girl. She didn't have the wherewithal to consent. He took advantage of her. I don't care. Like, okay, guys, did you think if she would have said no, wait for my father, that he would have waited for that? No. When you go into his writing, he loved her. He was infatuated by her. He raped her. Right? Verse 3. And he besought his father and her brothers that she might be given to him to wife. And Jacob and his sons were wroth because of the man of Shechem. And for they had defiled Dinah, their sister, and they spake to them with evil intent and dealt deceitfully with them and beguiled them. And Simeon and Levi came unexpectedly to Shechem and executed judgment on all the men of Shechem and slew all the men who they found. This is the angel speaking to Moses, relaying what God has established. This is the law here being established. That's right. The story of Daniel is very important when it comes to rape because it addresses that. Who they found in it and left none, a single one remaining in it. They slew all in torment because they had dishonored their sister Dinah. And thus let it not again be done from henceforth that a daughter of Zion be defiled. Right? That's the law right there. For judgment is ordained in heaven against them that they should destroy with the sword. All the men of the Shechemites, because they have brought shame in Israel. So this particular law specifically address if a Gentile, a non-circumcised man, a stranger, a goyim, a non-Israelite citizen would come unto our women and try to have sex, whether she wants it or not, we will kill that man. That's the law that was established, right? But I want to address exactly what that scripture in Deuteronomy 22:28 was addressing. But this, at least, opens the door. Right? Now, there's two thoughts, and that's why I want to get your guys' conversation here, is this is talking about that it should not be done in Israel regardless whether an Israelite or a Gentile, or this was specifically addressing the Gentile. And this is the reason why I'm asking this question, because when we keep reading in verse 6, it says, and the Lord delivered them into the hands of the sons of Jacob, that they may exterminate them with the sword and execute judgment upon them. And it might not thus again be done in Israel that a virgin of Israel shall be defiled. And now this is talking about, this is the reason why the two sons of Jacob, which is Simeon and Levi, did this to the Shechemites, because it should never be done. No stranger should come among us and do this among us. We go kill them. That's a binding law in heaven. It's going to prove that. Verse 7, it says, and now it's turning now into us. What is our responsibility now in regards of this law, right? It says in verse 7, and if there is any man who wishes in Israel to give his daughter or his sister, because if the father dies, the first son becomes the head of the household, so he could marry off his sister, right? His sister to any man who is of the seed of the Gentiles. He shall surely die. And they shall stone him with stone, for he has brought shame in Israel. And they shall burn the woman with fire, because she was deliberate doing it. So this is now talking about if you do it deliberately, right, you will kill the woman. But Dinah didn't do it deliberate. She was forced to do it. She was raped. So in that case, it will apply the same scenario in Deuteronomy 22:26 and 7, when it talks about that if a man finds a damsel in the field, a woman doesn't have to be betrothed to be protected if she gets raped by a stranger. But what about an Israelite? We're going to get into that. And he shall surely die. And they shall stone him with stones, for he has brought shame in Israel. And they shall burn the woman with fire, because she has dishonored the name of the house of her father. And she shall be rooted out of Israel. And let not an adulteress or no uncleanness be found in Israel throughout all the days of the generation of the earth. For Israel is holy unto the Lord, and every man who is defiled shall surely die, and they shall stone him with stones, right? For thus is it been ordained. This is the law right here. Ordained and written in the heavenly tablets regarding all the seed of Israel. He who defiles it shall surely die, and shall be stoned with fire. And to this law there is no limit of days or remission or no remission, nor any atonement. But the man who has defiled his daughter shall be rooted out in the midst of all Israel, because he has given of the seed of Moloch, brought principally so as to defile it, right? Because by marrying off your kids to Gentiles, now your kids are going to be worshiping their gods, right? And that's why that was against the law. We were not allowed to go outside of Israel. We have to stay within our tribes and our kinsmen, right? Chapter 30, same chapter, verse 11. And do thou command Moses, and do thou Moses command, the children of Israel to exhort them not to give their daughters to the Gentiles. That's why this law specifically is addressing what happened to Dinah, that going forward, this cannot happen again. Whether a Gentile comes forcefully or beguiling one of our women, he must be put to death. And not to take for their sons any of the daughters of the Gentiles. For this is an abomination, an abominable before the Lord. For this reason I write, pay attention, for this reason I have written for thee in the words of the law. There's a law now, all the deeds of the Shechemites. So the reason why this law exists today, Moses, is because what happened with Dinah and the Shechemites. Showing you that's a law. What we picked, Shechemites, verse 12, which they brought against Dinah, and how the sons of Jacob spake, saying, we will not give our daughter to a man who is uncircumcised, for that were a reproach unto us, and it is approved to Israel. And it is a reproof to Israel, to those who live, and to those that take the daughter of the Gentiles. For this is unclean and abominable to Israel. And Israel will not be free from this uncleanness. It has a wife of the daughter of the Gentiles. Now, when they have converted, is a different conversation. Conversion is a different conversation. But that's a different lesson or conversation. We're just having a talk. I'm not, this is what I believe to be true. I want to hear from you guys. I'm going to pick it up at verse. We pledge upon plagues. Okay, I'm going to pick it up because I don't want to. Okay, verse 17. Yeah, verse 17. For this reason I have commanded thee, saying, testify this testimony to Israel. See how the Shechemites fear in their sons, how they were delivered into the hands of two sons of Jacob, and they slew them under the torture, and it was reckoned, so this was reckoned by God unto them for righteousness, and it is written down to them for righteousness, right? And it goes into the seed of Levi, they become the priesthood, right? verse, blah, 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 verse 23, the last verse in the bottom. It says, and on the day when the sons of Jacob slew the Shechem, it is written, was recorded in their favor in heaven that they had executed righteousness and uprightness and vengeance on the sinners. So it's a sin to rape one of our women. If you are a Goyim, a Gentile, we will kill you. But what about an Israelite? We're going to get into that. And it was written for a blessing. So the law is, well, depends who is forcing himself on our women. We do know if she is betrothed, engaged, if somebody forces her, she doesn't have to marry that guy. She doesn't have to be engaged to that guy. They will kill that guy. If she's engaged or unengaged, not engaged, and then she gets forcefully raped by a Goyim, a Gentile, she doesn't have to marry him. We will kill that Gentile. Period. Right? So now you guys understand when we read this, this is a summary of what happened. This is the law that Brother Zionletz was talking about, but in the book of Jubilee it goes into much deeper in understanding. Verse 5, I'm in Genesis chapter 34, verse 5. And Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah, meaning Shechem, his daughter. Now his sons were with his cattle in the field. And Jacob held his peace until they were come. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out into Jacob to commune with him. And the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard it, and the men were grieved, and they were very wroth because he had brought folly in Israel, in laying with Jacob's daughter, which thing are not to be done. That's the law. That cannot be done. But in the book of Genesis, it doesn't present it as a law clearly enough. But in the book of Jubilee, it does, right? We're in the book of Jasher. I just want to just, well, let me just go back because I want to bring something out real quick, right? I have to be honest with my audience. I believe that there was a double standard. And I'm open to be corrected if I'm wrong. And I disagree with this law. I want to be honest with you. But I'm not God. Don't take it up with me, take it up with God. But I disagree. I would have done different if I was him, but I'm not him. So I just gotta, agree that his wisdom is how much higher than mine. But if you ask me honestly, I would say I disagree that this law exists as the way it exists. So, according to what I understand, if a woman is an Israelite woman, if she's engaged to a man, if a man forces her to have sex with him, he will be killed, but she don't have to marry him, and she will be free from any wrongdoing. If a woman is not betrothed, and if she gets forced to have sex with a man who is not an Israelite, an uncircumcised man, she will be free from marrying him. He will have to be killed, right? But a lot of people now I want to go into what does I believe if she's not betrothed and an Israelite man forces her to lay with her. This is my theory. I believe the consensus is correct. That if an Israelite man forces a woman to have sex with him, and she's not betrothed, she's not engaged to another man, because you being engaged, women, to another man, although you have not laid with him, you are treated like his wife. So it's like committing adultery. And but if you're an Israelite man and if you're an Israelite woman and she's not engaged and and it's all of it. It's beguile, trick her, got her drunk, romanced her, and also forced himself on her. I believe the consensus is that now he will have to do the right thing and marry her. And he will not be allowed to divorce her for the rest of his life. That's my understanding. So the only time a woman is protected and does not have to marry her rapist, I hate to say that that clear, is when that man is a Gentile or she's already engaged. That's my belief. Now, the only place I could see that there is a loophole, if the father could still refuse. Remember when Jacob, right, and Simeon and Levi went and said, listen, if you don't give us our demand, which is you should circumcise the men because we cannot give our sister to an uncircumcised nation. And then we all know that Simeon and Levi went within the city and slew all the men of the Shechemites. That in that scenario, their act was a proper law. It was a proper judgment. But if that man, I think I lost my guy, I thought where I was going, but if that man was an Israelite, I believe that he will have to pay a dowry to the father, and then the father could then marry them off. But the father could refuse. But this is the problem with the refusing, because it still doesn't give it to the power of the woman. The woman could still, if the father doesn't refuse, will have to marry the man who forced himself on her. So, like I said, I disagree with that law, but I'm not God. I didn't create that law. But I'm willing to also be corrected. Maybe I'm missing something, right? And even if the woman doesn't have to marry the Israelite man that raped her, I'm trying to minimize these words because I don't want to get shadow banned or whatever. But I gotta speak clear and concise. It's not in her power to say no if the father wants to say yes, A. And if the father says yes, it doesn't mean that he could marry her anyone off, because there was a tradition within Israel at that time that once a woman is defiled, no man would touch her. I'm going to go to the book of Jasher real quick. Let me just read this real quick. Okay, I'm going to pick it up at verse 1. I'm going to jump down. It says, and when Moses was 18 years old, he desired to see his father and mother, and he went up to Goshen. And when Moses had come to near Goshen, he came to a place where the children of Israel were engaged in work, and he observed their burden, and he saw an Egyptian smiting one of the Hebrew brothers. We know this story in the book of Exodus, right? And he kills them, goes back and forth, and then but in this version, in the book of Jasher, it goes into more details, right? Let me start at verse. Let me read the whole thing because you guys can understand. And when the man who was beaten saw Moses, he ran to him for help. So the man that was getting beaten, he ran to Moses for help, and it says, for the man Moses was greatly respected in the house of Pharaoh. And he said unto him, my Lord, attend to me. This Egyptian came to my house in the night, bound me, meaning tie me up, and came to my wife, meaning he raped her, in my place, my presence, excuse me. And when I seek to take, and now he seeks to take my life away. So this is the Hebrew man saying, complaining to Moses, say, hey, this is what this guy's doing, right? Pay attention. Verse 3 is, and when Moses heard this wicked thing, his anger was kindled upon against the Egyptian, and he turned he turned this way and the other. And when he saw there was no man there, he smote the Egyptian and hid him in the sand and delivered the Hebrew from the hand of him that smote him. Right? That's why in the book of Exodus and it's a summary of the history. We have to read other sources to get a much larger detail information in regards to these stories, right? Verse, what is it? I'm in 4, right? It says, and the Hebrew went into his house. Pay attention. And Moses returned to his home and went forth and came back to the king's house. And when the man had returned home, he thought to repudiating his wife, it means divorce, for it was not right in the house of Jacob for any man to come to his wife after she has been defiled. And there's evidence even in the Bible that this is true. Let me also go to over here. We all know the story of Shechem. Shechem, the son of David that betrayed David, and Shechem laid with his father's 10 concubines, right? Let me start it at 2 Samuel 15 and 16. It says, and the king went forth, this is David, and all his household after him, and the king left 10 women, which were concubines, to keep the house. 2 Samuel 16 and 21. And I can't even pronounce that word. At the Pothol said unto Shechem, Absalom, go into thy father's concubine, which he has left to keep the house. And all Israel shall hear that thou art abhorred of thy father. Then shall the hands of all that are with thee be strong. So Absalom was a wicked man, and he went against David, his father. And this was, prophesied because, it was told to David that evil will come upon your house because you slept with Uriah the Hittite's wife, and you killed him, and you murdered him, and you try to cover up. And Samuel, the prophet, told him, right, what's going to happen. So this is the revelation of that prophecy. 2 Samuel 16 and 22, it says, so they spread Absalom a tent upon the top of the house, and Absalom went into his father's concubine in the sight of all Israel, right? Second Samuel 20 and 3. And David came. This is eventually he got killed in the war, and David didn't want to kill his son, but he didn't kill his son. It was one of his soldiers, one of his generals, because his hair got caught in a tree, and then he got killed and stabbed in the war and so forth, so on. And David loved him, but he understood that he was suffering, and God, brought up evil upon his house because of the sin that David has committed, right? So let me read this real quick. It says Samuel. Let me see here. 2 Samuel 20 and 3. It says, and David came to his house at Jerusalem, and the king took the 10 women, his concubines, just the women that Absalom actually raped. He forced himself. He took them. This was not consensual, right? But the Most High judgment, right? Showing you that the Most High is against that, even among Israel, right? And besides, these concubines was already David's wives, and that's adultery, so we all know. And you can't sleep with any of your father's wives, right? So death was an appropriate sin, right? Who had left to keep the house and put them in inward, meaning he put them in a place and fed them. He took care of them, but when not into them, so that so they were shut up unto the day of their death, living in widowhood, meaning he didn't touch them ever again. This is a quick commentary in the Blue Letter Bible, and commentary by Robert Sherman Jameson. It says, the king took the 10 women, his concubine. Jewish writing says that the widow queen of the Hebrew monarchs were not allowed to marry again, but were obliged to pass the rest of their life in strict observation. David treated his concubine in the same manner after the outrageous committed on them by Absalom. They were not divorced, so he didn't divorce them. He still took care of them. That's why, brothers, are different. When you put a woman away, but you still take care of the bills and all that because she's not acting right, that's not a divorce. You could do that, right? But that's a different conversation. For they were guiltless, but they were no longer publicly recognized as his wife, nor was there confronted. It goes into what happened. So basically, he put them away, and he took care of them for the rest of their life. But it was a custom within Israel that once your wife is defiled, you don't touch her again. You still have to take care of her, but you don't touch her again. Especially David, because he was a king and he was under the Melchizedek order, right? That priesthood and king, right? So let me see if there's anything else. I don't think there's anything else. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else. Okay. So this kind of concludes my thesis. So I want to kind of speak to you guys. What do you guys think? I know there's a different opinion. You guys could call. The number is 267-358-0879. Let me also put as well the Zoom link. If people want to come into Zoom, make sure you're respectful. Make sure that you are in a place well lit. I don't want to talk to any brother in his bed, relaxing. Sit up and let me just put this here. 2 seconds, guys. Let me just put the link. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, so I have the link in the comment section through Zoom, and I also have the number so guys could call in. If I get it wrong, who disagree with me? I want to hear, especially people that disagree with me. People that agree with me too, but I'm open. I'm like 50-50 with this. In other words, it could have been consensual in Deuteronomy 22 and 28, or it could have been forced. I'm 50-50. But from my studies, what I got so far, it was not consensual. It was forced. And that was the law. Is it fair? I don't think so. But God is way smarter than me. So I have to accept what he established. But I could be wrong. And I know this is a sensitive conversation. It's a sensitive issue. You can find a bunch of video pros and cons in the internet. And it's a touch of issues. I know people don't want to talk about this and so forth, so on, but we have to address this, especially when you got people coming in with the conscious community and yada, yada, yada. And like Brother Polite, and by the way, Brother Polite, you want to criticize the whole rape thing, which you did a young girl. You got her drunk in a hotel and did all kinds of profanity with her, right? But another law you broke, which is definitely punishable by death, right? You're not allowed to marry a woman and her daughter. The minute you marry a woman, if she had kids, those kids become your biological kids or your legal kids. So therefore, since you're not allowed to have sex with your daughter, that's a law, punishable by death. And then if you marry a woman with daughter, that stepdaughter becomes your daughter legally under the eyes of God, according to the Torah. So you broke two laws. You raped and you committed a fornication by laying with your wife's daughter. You're not allowed to do that. But I want to talk to the audience right now, right? I want to talk to you guys. If you guys want to call in, don't be shy. Even if people agree with me, because I don't want to be out here staying alone. Because I remember I was having a passionate conversation with a brother in GOCC when I was in GOCC about 4 years ago about this subject, and he believed it was talking about force, and I said, well, no, we have to, I think that this scripture links up with Exodus 22 and 16, I believe, or 21 and 16, when it talks about if a man beguiles a woman, right, and lays with her. But in the back of my mind, I was not 100% dismissing him. He had a point, but when this thing came across my table again, I said, you know what, let me do a show about this because this is a very controversial conversation. But I believe that was what we're talking about. And I just want to say, once again, I disagree with it. But just because we disagree with something that God has ordained doesn't mean that we should just dismiss it. There could be other findings, other books that will probably give greater recommendation or what have you. But what I have right now, what we have, I think is just talking about the actual scenario that if a woman gets forced to have a relationship with an Israelite man, and if she's not betrothed, the rules is that they will give the man the opportunity to make it right and marry her. Is it right? That's up to us. I don't know, but God ordained it, right? Let God be true and every man a liar. And in these days, things are getting sensitive about these type of things, and I get it. But I just want to have this conversation. So if people want to call in, you're more than welcome, or go into the Zoom. Make sure you like and subscribe because I'm definitely getting shadow banned. I got a lot of friends like, hey, Carlos, man, sometimes I don't see you guys come on. I don't know you come on. I thought I was subscribed to you, so make sure you guys subscribe because a lot of people thought they were subscribed. It wasn't because my previous channel. So make sure you like and subscribe. So announcements. Let me bring some announcements while we are waiting for people to call in. If not, sometimes people they want to discuss certain things on opening, and that's okay. This is not. I'm not saying I'm 100% right or wrong. I'm just putting what's out there, what I believe to be true. But I'm open to be corrected if people see it different. Announcements. I know I've been away for a little bit, so I do apologize for that. Of course, we had there was the feast day, so I wanted to take some time off for that. I was trying to come in yesterday, but it was a day right after the atonement. I didn't feel, I didn't have the energy because I was fasting. I was in that mental state. I was, eating. So I said, let me come on today. I usually come on Tuesday, but I came on today. But, we're working on some stuff behind the scenes. What I'm doing, I'm going to be working on a night job because, starting an organization takes money. And, I do appreciate all the donations you guys give. If you guys want to donate, you got the Cash App and the PayPal. That goes directly to me. The cash, the super chat is good, but I get that at the end of the month and YouTube gets 30% of that, which is fine. I'm not within their platform, but the Cash App and the Cash App and the PayPal goes directly to and things of that nature. The website that we're looking to do is going to come out to a few $1,000s to make it right, and that's why I'm getting myself another job. I'm going to be doing armor trucks and delivering money and so forth. So I'm getting all the paperwork done, and that's been taking most of my time. That's why I've been not have the ability to come on and so forth, so on. So we're trying as much as we can. I do got some help now with the other brothers with your Friday night. Brother, I'm the one, he comes in with the virtue of a man. I know he also expecting more children in his family, so that's keeping him working as well. So, we're all trying as much as possible. I want to try to come on as much as possible, at least twice a week, if God willing, to bring forth information and context. And we do appreciate all the help and all the emails that I receive and so forth, so on. I've gotten some emails in regards of certain things or corruptions going on in the church and all that GOCC. And, you know, and there's certain things that I already knew about. There's other things that I didn't, but I don't want this challenge to be, you know, GOCC bashing kind of situation. You know, everybody understands that the beef I have with the leadership and what's going on with that. I wanted the committee. They didn't want to give me the committee, so I had to move on. And that's the short version of the story. But the people, I got no beef with the people. I got no beef with the members of the church. They're like my family. My wife and daughter still goes there. And you know, I think we should focus on the leadership. And if people agree there should be a committee, I think that should be the conversation and so forth, so on. And of course, what happened down with Philly, I think that should be corrected. And I hope that's being corrected. I don't know if it is, but I hope it is. But we're going to keep moving forward. We'll keep trucking. And we're going to keep trying to bring content that you guys could appreciate it. And you always will have my word. I will try to be as honest and as truthful as possible. This is a controversial conversation and topic, and I thought about it, I prayed about it, should I bring it up or not, and I felt I need to because we need to separate the men from the boys, and we should have a real conversation, you know. And like I said, we should be open to be wrong. If new revelation coming later, we could change our belief, or I would change my belief. I don't know what you guys agree with or don't agree with. I haven't been following the chat line, but for the most part, that's how I see it. But I'm open to be wrong because it's Zion Lex. He brought his theoretical hypothesis about when they both would, if they be found, giving some implication that it could have been consensual. I don't believe that's the case because I think there's too much evidence aiming towards the other way. But I could be wrong too. You know, we're dealing with an ancient document. Sometimes certain things are vague. We may have to wait until Christ gets here and let us know, hey, Christ, what's the proper understanding of this law? And he will give us the truth, right? So in the meantime, all we have is what we have. So I hope you guys were enlightened. I hope you guys was able to get something out of this. Please send me an email if you disagree or any further ideas about this subject. Within men going God's way, this is my personal belief. But you guys could believe, different things because we understand that men going God's way, we are not a marginate when it comes to believing all the same thing. All you have to believe is believe in God, believe in Christ. How you worship him, that's up to you. We do, and we are aiming to becoming more perfect union in regards of believing in God and how to worship him. But that's going to come later. Now we are working behind the scenes and so forth, so on. And behind the scenes is now getting myself another employment and also helping building this website, which I think is going to be very essential for men going God's way. So until next time, folks, I hope you guys enjoying the rest of your week. You know, the day of the memorial blowing the trumpet is coming for some. It already passed for others. Also, the Day of Atonement is passed for some. It's coming for others, depending what calendar you follow. And the day or the Feast of Tabernacles is also coming. So enjoy your feast, folks. However and whenever you worship it, make sure you worship it and do it in sincere heart, with a sincere heart. And let's continue, moving forward. I miss you guys. I'm back. Shalom, peace and blessings. May the Most High keep you and watch you.